Sigoli Sugweg, Lodli Hojeni, Ni Onget Sungwe Huene, Noa, Ni Wagitalo, Onyota Aga, Ni Wagohonjoda, Hungwe Hue, Ni Nage. My name is Luke Nicholas. I am a independent consultant that specializes in government relations. I always thought the education system, I mean, when you're a kid, your perspective on education, it seems normal. Nothing seems different, because you're used to what you're used to. It's not until you become an adult that you realize that there's something really wrong with the system. It isn't until you start transitioning from an on-reserve school to an off-reserve school that you realize that there's something different. Having a very small budget for education, sometimes when there are special needs, how can we identify those things? Is there a mental health worker? Specialized education programs, program teachers like science and technology or art. These are things that I feel that we don't necessarily have an abundance of resources for, and so therefore students don't get a chance from very early on to have that kind of exposure. You can't retain a good set of teachers, so that's one big issue. The more qualified individuals are going to some of the are getting jobs with education boards and districts that are paying at a very high rate. Oneida, for example, pays their teachers about 40% less than what a teacher will receive working for the London District School Board. And they're even paying their teachers 17% less than what a teacher would be paid at, say, at Chippewa of the Thames. So what that leads to is a very high turnover in teachers. I think in Standing Stone, the turnover rate is about 50%. So on an annual basis, 50% of their teachers turnover. And what that does for the continuity of education and for a child who needs stability and needs a regimented education program, they're not getting it. And oftentimes the folks that we are attracting are the young people who just graduate, and not to say anything bad, but young people who just graduate a university program and are looking for the experience. So they come here, they get hired easily because there's such a high turnover rate. They're only here for a very short time. They're here to gain the experience to put on their resumes. And the other very significant issue is that it seems that we try a whole lot to catch up to the academic world around us. So we look at what's going on and the standards and the benchmarks that are set by the Ontario government and facilitated by local district school boards outside of our community. And there seems to be a real focus to try to connect or try to meet those standards and benchmarks. And in my view, I think that we're looking at education completely wrong. We have to start looking at what is something that our students will benefit from in the long run. And one of the more significant things that I find that our students would really benefit from is having a cultural education, having an identity education, knowing who they are, where they come from, what language they speak, their history, their heritage.
I'm my Spirited name is Dancing Cloud Woman. My English name is Leslie White-Eye. I'm currently the chief at Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, what we call Deshkon being Antler River. Who's really responsible for education? And I would say that the federal government is responsible for the funding of First Nation school education, but that the communities themselves have to take complete responsibility of how it looks, the design of it, and what gets delivered, and what do the resources look like, and who gets to be in front of kids. And that solely rests in the community. It has to. We're all in different places, and this kind of cookie cutter approach where here's your contribution agreement, all of you 133 schools in Ontario in First Nation communities, you go deliver that K to grade program, hiring these teachers, and just do it traditionally like school is supposed to be done. So no, that's our responsibility. We need to design it for ourselves, for where we're at. And in this community at Chippewas of the Thames, we had a residential school right in our community. It was one of the first 2 schools in the entire country. So it's been here really, really long, and it's impacted generations and generations of kids, and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. And so that all of that experience is still being carried forward by our families, and that experience wasn't positive. And so when you're dealing with that in terms of people's attention to education and how much they believe in it, we got a long ways to go, because our community still don't trust education. And so with the types of resources we need to develop our own programs that are going to address that. And traditional school won't do that for us. We're not there yet. And so yeah, the federal government has responsibility for resourcing us. The communities have the responsibility for developing their own education systems and delivering them, and setting up the evaluation and monitoring of those. Because the federal government they're not in the business of delivering education, right? They never were. As soon as Confederation happened and the provinces went away and said, we'll do education, thank you very much. Federal government has never had to deliver education programs. All they had to do is cut a check to the provinces. So their whole system is not even made up to help federal schools, who they have responsibility over for education, to even offer the types of supports and understanding needed to support these systems. We don't have all those second level services. We don't have spec ed consultants coming in. We don't have learning consultants. And so that's the biggest difference I see, but also the other governance structures. So we don't have pay equity. We can't pay our teachers the same that the school boards pay, because we just don't get the resources that we need for that. And we don't have curriculum writers. We don't have people writing books about Chippewas history, which we know is important to us, and yet we can't rely on the publishers out there because they're not producing those books. Yet we know that's an important curriculum component of our history that our kids should know about. So we don't get resources for that. And how are we going to fund that?
My name is Guy Williams. I'm the manager of the First Nations Center. Part of our outreach program, in terms of where we're trying to recruit out to Aboriginal communities and students, we kind of do it multifold. One, we try to be in with the students themselves. Our outreach worker will go directly into the schools, directly into the communities, in terms of trying to, again, actively talk about our programs and services and how they might benefit a prospective student. Beyond that, we also have an Aboriginal Education Council, which we, in a sense, work with representatives from the regional First Nations and Aboriginal organizations, and that, again, that's to make sure that our programs here meet their needs, but also to get information out to them in terms of what the programs are and what they can offer to a prospective student. Planned activities. So right now we're just in the process whereby we're developing a new strategic plan for the years going forward. So as part of that, we'll look at areas such as community relations, such as student recruitment, and we will start to incorporate, what are our plans going to be in those areas, and how we're going to about achieving that. So when we do have to report back, we're not only reporting back to the college, but we also report back to our community partners in terms of the types of things that we're trying to do, again, to benefit future students and existing students of the college.
I'm Kathy Auger, and I'm Vice President of Student Services for Fanshawe College. I head up a team of student services staff, so it includes many areas, including our student success team, and the First Nations Center is part of that team, and other student services areas like Registrar's Office, Library, residences, and so forth. Well, certainly the First Nations Center manager has a role in that. The outreach position in the First Nations Center has a role in that. Certainly in developing programming, the academic staff work with the First Nations to ensure that the program is aligned to the needs of students within those communities and not aligned with the needs of the business and industry within those communities. So we have academic staff from a couple of areas that are, a number of areas that are interacting with various First Nation communities. Fanshawe is doing, so we have the, as you know, the First Nation Studies program major within our General Arts and Science program. There are a number of courses that have been launched, separate courses that have been launched, including, just refer to my list here, there is a traditional knowledge course, contemporary knowledge, a number of individual courses. There are courses that are being offered within First Nation communities. So our corporate training and solutions area is providing training in terms of what First Nation communities want. There has been American Sign Language course that's been offered in a community, for instance. There are also school within a college programs that we offer in conjunction with school boards. So we have high school students who are coming to Fanshawe, and we have a dual credit courses and a school within a college course specifically for Indigenous students. So there are a number of things going on. There are a number of new courses and programs that are going to be coming on board in 16-17. So there's our academic programming for First Nation students and First Nation communities has grown, and we're certainly working on expanding that training in a number of different ways. Certainly the post-secondary education is being funded through the tuitions paid through the funding that the First Nation communities receive, and through our operating grant that we receive based on our enrollments. So that's one source of funding. In addition, the training that is specifically delivered within First Nation communities is often delivered based on a contract. So the First Nation community would ask for a course in whatever it is, and there would be a contract. So that's how it's funded. The First Nation Center is funded through a grant that we receive from the Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities. We apply for the grant. Our Aboriginal Education Council it reviews the application for the grant, which sets out what it is that we're applying for funding to do. That's all flowing through our Aboriginal Education Council, and then we submit the grant application to the ministry in hopes that we're going to receive funding.